17 minutes to Machiavelli's most ruthless rulebook. Ruthless decisions that took leaders down. Everyone thinks they know Machiavelli. The word itself has become a curse. Machiavellian, the sly, the ruthless, the cruel. The man who told princes to deceive, to betray, to wield fear like a weapon. But what if that's a lie? What if the true danger of Machiavelli isn't that he encouraged cruelty, but that most people completely misunderstood what he meant? It's been centuries since he gave away his darkest secrets in writing. Yet, most men don't know the obvious. They can't see what is in front of them. Here's the truth. Machiavelli did not worship cruelty. He feared reckless cruelty. He feared rulers who confused arrogance for power, greed for strategy, and blind violence for strength. He believed a prince must be willing to do harsh things. Yes, to kill, to deceive, to be called cruel, but only when it was absolutely necessary. Only when it served a larger survival. In Machiavelli's world, cruelty was not a lifestyle. It was a medicine, bitter, dangerous, yes. But sometimes this cruelty was the only cure. The tragedy is that most leaders never learned this distinction. They followed what they thought was Machiavelli's rulebook of ruthlessness. And in doing so, they destroyed themselves. They empowered rivals who turned on them. They injured enemies without finishing the job. They indulged in cruelty again and again until the entire realm longed for their death. And in the end, the throne beneath them crumbled. That is why this knowledge feels forbidden, because Machiavelli's real lesson is hidden in plain sight, but ignored. He did not teach cruelty for its own sake. He taught discipline, the willingness to do what must be done and nothing more. And tonight, we're opening that rulebook. The rules that reveal why leaders fall and how some manage to endure. But remember, once you learn these rules, you cannot unlearn them. They will change how you see every leader, every betrayal, every downfall. And this will change the way you lead. Ready to open the Ruthless Rulebook? Of course you are. Welcome to Chapter 1. He who causes another to become powerful ruins himself. Machiavelli the Prince, Chapter 3. Every ruler thinks they control the game, until the people they empowered decided to flip the board. Machiavelli warned that the most dangerous mistake a leader can make is to create power outside of himself. Because once another man has tasted power you gave him, you cannot control what he will do with it. He will suspect you. He will envy you. And one day, he will ruin you. Just ask Conrad Black, the media baron who once ruled an empire of newspapers. The Daily Telegraph, the Jerusalem Post, the Chicago Sun-Times. A man who dined with prime ministers, lived in palaces, and liked to call himself a lord. To his allies, he gave positions, wealth, and prestige. He stacked his board with powerful names, thinking it made him untouchable. But Machiavelli warned men like him, "You're planting knives in the hands of men who will one day use them against you." When Black's shady dealings came to light, those powerful board members didn't protect him. They turned. They ousted him. And his most trusted deputy, his oldest friend, David Radler, became the witness who testified against him in court. Conrad Black had empowered his own executioner. From private jets and high society to a prison cell in Florida, the mighty prince of media reduced to a number in the system. Exactly as Machiavelli whispers in our ears, he who causes another to become powerful ruins himself. The dark lesson? Ruthlessness isn't arrogance. Discipline means never giving a rival the weapon they can one day press against your throat. Black thought loyalty was permanent. He forgot that in power, loyalty is borrowed, and knives, well, they are permanent. In The Prince, Machiavelli said, "It is much safer to be feared than loved. But a prince must guard himself from being hated. Fear is a tool, hatred is a death sentence." Machiavelli drew a razor-thin line between the two. A prince can and should make his people fear him, because fear keeps order. But if that fear curdles into hatred, then the prince is finished. Because hatred does not sleep. It waits. It conspires. It sharpens the dagger in the dark. No modern leader embodies this rule and its violation more clearly than Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber. Kalanick built an empire on aggression. His motto was speed, disruption, domination. Internally, Uber's culture was cutthroat. Employees feared him. Competitors feared him. Even governments feared him. On paper, he was living the Machiavellian playbook. But he made one fatal mistake. He didn't stop at fear. Inside Uber, employees watched as harassment was ignored, rules bent, drivers treated like disposable cogs. Externally, the public saw arrogance. Scandals piled up. Spying on regulators, sabotaging rivals, berating his own drivers on camera. Fear kept Uber alive, but hatred began to spread like poison. And when hatred spreads, even the most powerful prince finds himself cornered. A viral #DeleteUber campaign wiped out hundreds of thousands of users overnight. His own board turned against him. Investors demanded his resignation. In 2017, the man who thought himself untouchable was forced to step down, betrayed not by his enemies, but by those closest to him. Machiavelli's warning had come true. Fear is safer than love, but not when it breeds hatred. The dark lesson: if you wish to rule, you must be feared but never despised. Kalanick thought fear was enough. He forgot that fear without respect hardens into hatred, and hatred has the patience of an assassin. Men should either be caressed or crushed, because they can avenge slight injuries, but not severe ones. Injuries must be so severe that one does not fear revenge. Let that sink in. Machiavelli knew the dangers of half measures. If you choose to strike, strike with such force that your enemy can never recover, because the enemy you wound but do not destroy will spend the rest of his life plotting your death. No story illustrates this rule more brutally than Tony Montana in Scarface. Oh? You thought it was just a movie? No, no, no. It held within the script truths that Machiavelli himself would applaud. Tony was the immigrant who carved his empire in Miami with nothing but violence and hunger. He killed his boss, seized control, and ruled with the arrogance of a lion. But Tony's violence was reckless, not strategic. He sprayed bullets in every direction, leaving behind not corpses, but survivors. Survivors who hated him. Survivors who waited. The dead don't seek revenge, but the living do. His greatest mistake came with Alejandro Sosa, the Bolivian kingpin who gave Tony his start. When Tony refused to carry out an assassination, he didn't just defy Sosa. He wounded him, he embarrassed him, and he left him alive. Machiavelli would say Tony had chosen the one path guaranteed to invite annihilation. The result? The infamous Last Stand. Tony, high on cocaine and his own myth, screaming, "Say hello to my little friend," as Sosa's men swarmed his mansion. Tony kills dozens, but in the end, he is shot down, falling into the fountain beneath a neon globe that reads, the world is yours. The world was his, until his wounded enemies came for revenge. And the world could be yours if you learn from Tony's mistakes, if you let Machiavelli's teachings in. If you strike to end it. Men forgive small favors, but they never forgive small injuries. Tony Montana lived by blind cruelty, and blind cruelty always leaves survivors. Survivors who return with a vengeance. Cruelties well used are those committed at once for necessity's sake, and then stopped. Badly used are those that, although few at first, increase with time instead of disappearing. Machiavelli's wisdom was clear. If cruelty is required, it must be swift, decisive, and final. A single strike that terrifies your enemy and secures your rule. But cruelty repeated, cruelty dragged out over years, is poison, because each act breeds new resentment until the entire kingdom conspires to see you fall. No character captures this truth better than Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. These characters and shows are more than stories for those who look deeper for meaning. The Machiavellian meaning. When Cersei blew up the great sept of Baelor, she killed her rivals in one terrible explosion. The High Sparrow, Marjorie Tyrell, dozens of nobles in one instant of wildfire. In Machiavellian terms, this was cruelty well used. One strike, brutal and total. It cleared the board, and for a moment she stood triumphant, crowning herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. But Cersei didn't stop. She could never stop. She tortured Ilaria Sand in the dungeons, letting a mother watch her daughter die slowly. She betrayed allies, starving her people, lied to her enemies, and doubled her cruelty each season. What should have been one ruthless act of consolidation became an endless river of blood. And Machiavelli warned us all about what would happen next. Cruelty that increases with time only manipulates hatred. Tyrion Lannister saw it clearly. He told Daenerys, "Fear is all Caesarea has. It makes her power brittle, because everyone beneath her longs to see her dead." By the end, Cersei ruled alone. No friends, no true allies. Only mercenaries and fear-bound sycophants. So when Daenerys brought fire and blood to King's Landing, not a single hand rose in Cersei's defense. Her own subject prayed for her downfall. The Red Keep collapsed around her, burying the queen whose obsession with spilling blood meant she would never rise again. Mercenaries and auxiliaries are useless and dangerous. They are disunited, ambitious, and without discipline, and faithful to you only in the moment. If you rely on them, you will be ruined. Machiavelli never trusted borrowed power. A prince who cannot fight with his own arms, his own people, is not truly a prince. He is a tenant in his own kingdom, living on borrowed strength. Mercenaries, foreign allies, even temporary partners, they fight for pay or convenience, not for loyalty. And when the tide shifts, they abandon you. Or worse, they turn their weapons on you. We've seen this prophecy unfold again and again. Think of Afghanistan 2021. For 20 years, the Afghan state leaned on the armies and resources of the United States and NATO. Trillions spent, soldiers trained, weapons supplied. But the moment foreign support was withdrawn, the Afghan army collapsed without a fight. Cities fell in days, the government crumbled. Machiavelli would not have been surprised. An army that fights for you only when someone else pays its bills is no army at all. And fiction tells the same story. Daenerys Targaryen built her power on borrowed swords. The Unsullied, the Second Sons, later the Golden Company. They fought brilliantly, yes, But they were never her people. They were bought, freed, persuaded. They followed her across the sea, but in Westeros they were foreigners. No loyalty rooted in the soil. And when the tides of war turned, when the realm saw her as a conqueror rather than a queen, her armies could not hold her throne. Her foreign soldiers died for her, but her people never truly fought with her. And in the end, she was murdered in her own castle, betrayed not by enemies, but by the man she thought loved her most. The dark lesson: if your strength depends on others, your throne rests on sand. Mercenaries will vanish the moment gold runs out. Allies will leave when the winds shift. Even friends will betray when loyalty costs too much. Machiavelli's warning is merciless. Your power must be your own, or it is not power at all. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. Reality is fragile. Appearance is everything. Machiavelli knew the dark truth of politics. People judge by what they see, not what is. A ruler may be ruthless, cunning, even cruel behind closed doors. But in public, he must appear virtuous, wise, just, because the crowd does not know your reality. They only know the mask you wear. This mask can hold empires together, until the moment it cracks. Take Elizabeth Holmes, founder of Theranos. To the world she appeared visionary, a young genius in a black turtleneck, hailed as a female Steve Jobs. She smiled on magazine covers, promised a medical revolution, and inspired billions in investment. That was the appearance. The reality: machines that didn't work, results faked, a house of cards propped up by illusion. And when the mask finally slipped, when journalists and whistleblowers exposed the truth, everything collapsed. Investors, partners, the public, all turned at once. Holmes went from being the most celebrated woman in Silicon Valley to a criminal convicted of fraud. Machiavelli could have predicted it. Once appearance no longer shields reality, the fall is catastrophic. Fiction tells the same story in sharper strokes. Frank Underwood in House of Cards mastered appearances. To the public, he was the loyal congressman, the southern gentleman with charm. Behind the curtain, he schemed, betrayed, and murdered. For years, his mask held because Machiavelli was right. Few experience what you really are. But when the illusion began to crumble, when too many people glimpsed the monster behind the smile, Frank's empire imploded. He had built his throne on appearance, and once that appearance fractured, no reality could save him. The dark lesson: power depends less on what you are than what others believe you to be. You can be vicious, manipulative, even corrupt. If the mask holds, the throne is secure. But the moment your mask slips, you're naked, vulnerable, despised. Machiavelli's warning is chilling. Reality matters less than illusion. And if you fail to guard the illusion, your downfall will be swift, public, and merciless. Well, my faithful pupils, what have we learned? Most people think Machiavelli's rulebook was written in blood. They imagine it as a manual of cruelty, a call to betray, to deceive, to destroy. But the truth, hidden in plain sight, is far more unsettling. Machiavelli's rules were never about blind cruelty. They were about discipline, about the cold willingness to do what is necessary, and the restraint to stop before cruelty devours you. This is not a rulebook for tyrants. It is a rulebook for survivors. Because Machiavelli knew cruelty is not strength. Cruelty is a tool. a bitter medicine, a dose that can save a kingdom or kill it. The difference lies in restraint. And that is why this knowledge feels forbidden, because the truth is not comforting. It doesn't promise that goodness wins, or that cruelty always fails. It promises something colder, that survival belongs to the disciplined, to the ones who know when to wield the knife and when to sheathe it. So now you know. The Ruthless Rulebook is open. The question is not whether you will use it. The question is, when the moment comes, will you have the discipline to stop? If this hit you, don't let it vanish into the scroll. Hit like so the algorithm knows men like you still exist. Subscribe for more forbidden strategy. And remember, the man who plays by the Ruthless Rulebook wins everything. Until next time.